Welcome to the Excel Executive. So today we will start working on pivot tables. But first, some background. So what I would normally do is that I will create a table first, something like this, and I will ensure that all the data in the table is complete in all respects. One more thing is that if I want to create some conditional columns, which I normally create using the if statement or the if formula, I do that in the table as well. Once that is done, then for the analysis part, I use the pivot tables. So all the aggregations, be it SUMIF, COUNTIF, sum, average, or anything else, I use the pivot table. So what I do is that I ensure that all the basic data is complete in a table. And again, it should be a table, not a range, despite the fact that you can use ranges to create pivot tables as well. But that is not how I work with this. So first, let me show you that this is actually a table. As you know that the tab is also active. So let me just show you that the name of the table is groceries. Now, instead of explaining all the things, I think I would demonstrate how to create a pivot table, and I believe that it will be much easier to do it that way. So let us begin. So create a pivot table. What you do is that you click anywhere in the table, then you go to the Insert tab, and you click on the pivot table icon. Once you click it, a tab opens, and it basically has three parts. So first is it's asking you to select a table or a range, and here it says that it has selected the groceries table, so we know that we're good. The second part is that it's asking that where do you want to create the pivot table. Two options: new sheet or the existing worksheet. Now the best practice is that your table or tables should be on a single sheet and the pivot table should be on a separate sheet. But in this case, I will create the pivot table on this sheet as well so that we can see the table and the pivot table side by side. And the last option is that choose whether you want to analyze multiple tables. So we haven't done data models yet. Now the path is that we already know how to create charts and graphs. We are learning pivot tables in these videos. Once this is complete, then we will move on to create dynamic dashboards. Once that part is done, then you will move to data modeling. So before that, you can just ignore this part. So what I will do is that I will click existing worksheet, meaning that I'm creating the pivot table in the same sheet. And then it's asking for the location. So let me choose this cell, go back and click OK. And a basic pivot table is created. So what I will do is that I will just make them a bit short. So that we can view the pivot table easily. Let me just try and adjust them again. Yeah, this makes more sense. Here we go. Anyways, so this is the canvas on which we will create a pivot table. Now these are the options. First are the pivot table fields. So fields and column name is basically the same thing. So if you see, all the names here are basically the column headers or the column headings. So category, shop, item name, purchase date, so on and so forth. It's exactly the same thing. Then you have four boxes here: filters, columns, rows, and values. We will start from the bottom. So values. So whenever you want to aggregate a column which contains numbers in it, we use those columns in this box, the values one. So in our table, we have total amount, this one, quantity, and price. So we can use any one of these or a combination. So we can use multiple columns in any of these boxes. So for these three columns, we will use values. This is what you do normally. You can also use other columns in the values box as well, but we will do that once we are done with this first part. The second are the rows. So once you have values placed in this box, then you will use the rows box by dragging any of the other fields in it so that you can see that how that amount is divided according to that specific column header. So let us begin, and I think if I demonstrate it, it's going to make more sense. So first, I will move the total amounts in the values because this column contains numbers in it. So once I do it, you can see that it shows you the total amount, $149.20. If I highlight these cells, you can see that it is giving the correct amount. Okay, first thing, how do you read it? The column header. It says sum of total amount. So total amount is the name of the column, and what comes before of normally is the type of aggregation that you see here. So you can use sum, you can use count, you can use averages. So if I go here, go to the field settings, and field means column, I change it to average, I click OK, you will see that it changes the type of aggregation from average to total amount. Let me just undo that. So it tells you what type of aggregation is happening to what column. Okay, the next part is the rows box. So let's say I want to divide this data into shops. So how much amount of $149.20 is from the vegetable shop and how much is the grocery shop? So I will take the shop header and drag it in the rows box. Once I do that, it breaks it into two parts. The grocery shop is $48 and the vegetable shop is worth $101.20. And the total obviously is the same, $149.20. Now, once you add something in the rows box, it gives you a heading called row labels. Now you can change it, but when you are just starting off with using pivot tables, I would suggest you don't do that. So if we wanted to divide it shop wise, we placed shop here. And if you want to do the same in columns, you drag the same thing and move it into the columns box, and it will change it and it will look something like this. But for the time being, let's keep it here. And of course, you can take shops out, and let's say you want to break it category wise. So you drag categories in the rows, and you can see that it has broken the same amount category wise: drinks, nuts, snacks, so on and so forth. The last part or the last box is the filters box. So if you want to filter this data, let's say by shop, you will move that column header in this box, and once you do that, a filter option will appear in the pivot table, and you can use that to filter the data. So it says $149, and I think for the vegetable shop it was $48, and for the vegetable shop it was $101.20, if I'm not wrong. So if I click OK, $101.20. So it broke the categories for the vegetable shop into these two parts. So basically you are filtering categories according to vegetable shop. So that is how you're supposed to use the filters. And you can clear it like this. And if you want to remove it, you can just drag it out. And we're back to square one. So this is the way how you use these four boxes. Now, before I end this video, you have to understand that you can add multiple values in rows, columns, filters, and values. So let's say this is the total amount. And first, what I would do is that I will break it shopwise. Now, The next thing that I would like to do is that I would like to break it further category wise. So for that, what I will do is that I will drag the category column under the shop as well. Once I do it, you can see that the grocery shop, which is worth $48, is divided into drinks, nuts, and snacks. Similarly, vegetable shop, $101.20, is divided into drinks and vegetables. And of course, the total is supposed to be $149, and it maintains it. So one thing worth noting is that this total is the total of these two, 48 and 101, as you can see it here, or it's the total of these categories. Same thing. It is not the total of the whole bit. That won't make any sense. These are referred as subtotals, and we can, in the next video, we will see how we can use different options to show or hide these things.